There it is. I love the thumbs up. Hey, you know what? Welcome to day 5, which also known as Friday, which also is known as it's going to be happy hour real soon sometimes, right? Right. Sarah's laughing, right? So, guys, we have had a fantastic week with you, bringing you Celebrate 21 this year, our virtual conference. The beauty about Celebrate 21 isn't just that we have the opportunity to hear from some amazing subject matter experts in our industry and in our system, but we also get to celebrate you. And as you were probably watching some of the run reel that was running earlier, we have all of our awards that have happened over in 2020. I almost messed that up. In 2020, our award winners that have been recognized in the on our run reel. We also have celebrations for you. So do me a favor. This week, March 1st through today, March 5th, I want you to go to your chat and let us know, one, this is the Celebrate thing we're going to celebrate today. If you got a new listing this week. So go to the chat, tell us, I got a new listing. Tell us how much it was or where it's located. Put it into the chat. I want to hear from each and every one of you because we are celebrating you. Within Celebrate 21 this month, we're going to give you 21 days of learning. And today is no different. It's going to be a spectacular day. I know it because I know these guys. If you have not yet registered for your learning sessions for next week, make sure you go to celebrate21learningsessions.splashthat.com. And that's where you can register for all of your learning sessions next week. Keep in mind, our learning sessions on Mondays, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays are recorded. Our special speaker sessions that happen on Wednesdays. As a matter of fact, on this coming Wednesday, we're going to have Maurice Ashley with us on Wednesday the 10th. Those sessions are not recorded. So if you want to hear all of our speaker sessions, and there are 4 each Wednesday of the month, make sure you come to that session live. It's 3 p.m. Eastern time at celebrate21.splashthat.com. But you got to be registered. All right. Look, I'm seeing new listings coming in. New listing. Great. That's fantastic. So today, here's the format of our webinar today. It's a little bit different than a meeting that you may have been a part of or any of our Century 21 University training sessions. Today is a webinar, and we're going to have the opportunity to speak to our 3 subject matter experts that you heard throughout the week. Now, a webinar works this way. You have been using our chat feature. You all see it over on the side or wherever you have our chat. But for questions and answer, which we're going to have a ton of questions today, I need you to go to the bottom of your screen and you're going to see an area that says Q&A. That's where you can put in your question. Now, here's the beauty of the Q&A. Let's say that you have a similar question as someone else that's on the call today. You can thumb up that question and it will, the more thumbs up that we get or up votes, the higher that question will go to the top of the list. So all questions, if you can go into the Q&A, that's the area I'm going to be monitoring. So if you put a question in the chat, I might not see it, and I want to make sure we see them all. Go to the Q&A, type in your question, hit thumbs up. If you look at a question and you say, hey, that's a really good question, thumb it up. Specifically, if you have a question for one of our panelists, not all 3, but just one, put that in your question. You might want to say, hey, Brian, here's a question for you. Okay. Or, hey, Lori, here's a question for you. All right. So I think we've got it set. We're going to be together here until we run out of questions. And I've got some questions for them too. Right. But before we can ask any questions, I want to give them all the opportunity to introduce themselves. 3 subject matter experts talking about the focus this week, which was building a strong foundation for your business. So I'm going to let them introduce themselves. I'm going to start it out with Miss Sarah down in Texas. Sarah, tell us about yourself.
Hello. Yes, how are you guys? I am actually finally defrosted. So I am from Texas. Business has been crazy. It's been great. I've been in the business, I think 17 years now, going on about that. So I don't think I'm qualified to do anything else at this point. So I'm kind of stuck. But my business took off and it pushed me into a team lead role. So a lot of the things that I'll be talking about are systems and things that I put in place and grew into a team. So if you guys have any questions about growth, assistance, admin, systems, that's kind of my forte that I learned by fire.
Good. And Sarah, can I ask you a quick question? If any questions come up about putting together a team, is it okay to ask you as well?
Of course, you can ask me anything but my weight. That's good. Everything else is good. Open book.
I love it. I love it. That's great. All right. Next, Lori.
Hello, everybody. I'm Lori Adams. I'm an associate broker with Century 21 Winkelhofer in Buffalo, New York. I've been an agent for 15 years, and I'm a sole practitioner, so totally the opposite of team, so an interesting perspective. I'm a 3-time Centurion Award winner, so last year I sold about $10 million in real estate.
That's amazing. I muted myself, so you probably didn't hear my wow, but I was like, wow, I'll redo it again. Good job. That's awesome. I love that, Lori. All right. And next we have Mr. Matt from sunny Florida. And just before Matt starts talking, I'm going to let you guys know that Matt is actually on the road helping clients. So he's taking out his busy day, as they all are. They're all extremely busy. They're like top-notch producers, so they're all busy. And Matt is fitting us in between clients. So he's actually in the car. That's why he's off camera right now. But Matt, go right on ahead.
What's going on, you guys? Matt Hornaday from Boca Raton, Florida. I am with Century 21 Stein Posner. I have been in the business for going on my 4th year right now. And just as Lori mentioned, I am also a Centurion Award winner. Had a phenomenal year last year, and of course this year we're going to continue to crush it. So hope everybody else has the same game plan.
Awesome, good job. So Sarah Paget is already answering a question. That's great. It just popped up there. It's like there's already a question. But that's great. Thank you for answering that, Sarah. So as we go through today, and I want to thank each and every one, what I mentioned before is that they are all busy. They are all busy. But you know what, guys? They see the importance in not only learning, but also impacting others, which is so vital in this business, right? Because you can get everything you want in life if you just help enough people get what they want in life. So I want to, and that's Zig Ziglar. I didn't say that. That was Zig Ziglar. But I want to commend and thank our subject matter experts for their time in preparing their presentations, their time for delivering their presentations, and their time to be here today to answer more questions and get a deeper dive into them, because that's where the rubber meets the road, right? What are they doing that's successful that I may be able to duplicate, that I may be able to do to help my business along? For those of you, I forgot to introduce myself. For those of you who do not know me, my name is Brian Pitt. I'm with the Century 21 University Learning Faculty. I've been part of the corporate team since 2010. And before that, I was an agent and a managing broker in Southern New Jersey. So let's talk real quick with Lori and Sarah. Let me ask you guys a question. At what point in your business did you realize that you weren't running your business was actually running you? Who'd like to start?
Yeah, so just like any agent, you just take things as they come, and you're happy and blessed to have the business that you have. And then one day you wake up and you realize you haven't had a vacation or a day off, and God knows when. And for me, there was a time in my life that the phone would ring and I would get mad. Here's a client that's willing and able to buy or sell. They're calling me, they want me to help. And I was frustrated and mad. I literally threw my phone one day because it was ringing, because somebody wanted me to help them. And so that's when I knew, it's like, okay, something's wrong when I've advertised myself as I want and I'm willing to help. They're doing what I've asked them to do, and now I'm mad. So I really had to kind of step back and say, I'm overwhelmed. What do I need to do? And that's where some of the systems and the help started to come along.
Wow, I love that. I love that. That's amazing, because I think about those days myself when I was a listing and selling agent. I probably had the same situations. I can definitely remember it when, yeah, that kind of touched me. Thank you for being so real about that. There's nothing wrong with saying, hey, this is frustrating. I need to find a solution. Thank you. How about you, Lori?
I tell people I realized I was getting overwhelmed when I stopped being fun. I was no longer going out with my friends, my family. Someone would say, hey, do you want to go to dinner next Thursday? And I would say, are you kidding me? I might have to show a house. No, I can't make any plans. This is nuts. And then I realized that this is not how I wanted to live, that work-life balance needed to change. So that's when I realized it was time I started scheduling fun.
I love that. Go ahead, Sarah.
Can I ask you a question, Lori?
Sure.
What did you put in place, or what did you do to change that? Because it's really hard once you have that volume. What do you do to set those boundaries?
So my youngest son now is 26, but he was a travel baseball player, and I never missed a game, regardless of anything else. And he actually wrote about it in an essay, which then I think made me more convicted to make sure I never missed anything. But I would tell people, look, I have a meeting today from, I'm working with a client at 3:00 today, so I can show you a house before 2 or after 4 or whatever it was. And I would just always make myself available. Now I have somebody that helps me with showings, because with listings, you don't usually have to dash out the door that second. It's the showings that really put you on edge, especially in a seller's market. So I do have people that will help. My office is great with that. But for the most part, I just started putting it on my calendar. If there was a party, I said yes, and I put it on there, and I worked my schedule around the fun. But you never get fun 2 days in a row.
Very true.
Yeah. And before, because I want to ask Sarah, because now Lori has told us what she did. I want to ask Sarah, when you did realize that point, that you were getting angry, what did you do to get through that?
Well, initially I started drinking more. That is not a good solution. I do not recommend that. That will only take you so far. Just when you sober up, so don't do that. No, I think I just started to ask for help. I started to really lean into my support. I have a great manager, a great company, and the tools and things that were offered to me that I just kind of ignored, because I could do it on my own, and I just always kind of had. So I started to, something I hate to do, I started to delegate and ask for help. And I think us as agents, our egos sometimes get in the way, and we think we have to be everything to everyone. So, and I started to be a little pickier about who I worked with and how far I drove and things like that. So yeah, I just had to really, I guess, just start leaning into other people and asking for help.
I love that. Asking for help. That's such, you never think that it's that simple, but it is that simple. And then the other simplicity of, like Lori said, put it in your calendar and you get around it. I know I learned that when I was an agent. I went to a class similar to this at a convention, and it was called How to Become a Centurion. And at the time I was a master's agent, and I remember wanting to be centurion. And I remember sitting down with a gentleman who was a double centurion, who said, I'm a double centurion and I take all my weekends off. I was like, what? How is that possible? And he said, I put it in my calendar. My weekends are for me, my family, and for God. Put it in my calendar. And it sometimes is just that simple. Good job. We've got a couple of questions that have started to come in. As a reminder to our attendees, use the Q&A feature. We've already had some thumbs up. So I see the question starting to move on the Q&A. It's great. The first question is from Marianne, and it says, at the start of a real estate career, is it usual, I guess it's to have a feeling of being so totally overwhelmed by the end of each week? If so, when does this feeling end?
Well, I guess I could start. I don't know if that feeling ever ends. It kind of ebbs and flows. There's just certain weeks that they're just overwhelming, and it depends on the number of problems that you get to deal with and how many solutions that you have to come up with. But like I found, I can tell now when I'm starting to get burned out. Last year, I thought with the pandemic, we'd have a terrible year, and I ended up having my best year ever in real estate, which I don't know how that happened because we're in New York and we were shut down for 9 weeks. But when I came back to work, I was racing, lots of hours. And I kept saying to myself, I'm getting burned out. I can feel it, but we can't travel anywhere. So you just find a way to deal with it. And you said delegate really helps. If there's somebody else that can help you with it, find that person to help, or even just somebody to talk to, work through your problems with.
Great answer. Sarah, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I'd say a couple things. When you first start, you're really taking in water from a fire hose. So everything's being thrown at you all at one time, and most of the things you're learning is not what you need today. So I think it's very normal to feel overwhelmed because a lot of the things, again, the things you need when you need them, you may not remember if you learned them 2 or 3 months ago. So take really good notes. Find someone. If you have a mentor, do not shop answers. If you go to 4 different agents, you're going to get 4 different answers, and that's going to add to you being overwhelmed. So find a good source that you trust, and kind of start there and learn as you go. Again, take notes even if you don't need the stuff now, but something you can go back to. And really, you've got to prioritize because you only have so many hours in a day. And if you let it, and I know Lori can probably attest to this too, if you let it, other people and other problems are going to run your whole day. And then by the time you get all the fires put out, you haven't done the things that make you more money. So you really just have to focus and hunker down, and you just have to know that your to-do list is never going to get done. And that was hard for me because I'm very much of an like it has to be done before I go home, and that does not exist in real estate. So just give that up, and that will help a lot.
I like it. And speaking about, because, a lot of our attendees may be new to this. They may be just starting, or they may be at a point in their business where they have to move to that next level. Let me ask you about systems for the two of you. What was the first system that you actually put into place? Okay.
So I actually started pre-booking my appointment. So let's say I took Lori to look at a house. Before Lori got back in her car, I would set the next appointment with her. And what that did for her is it gave her a date in the future, it kind of calmed her down a little bit, knowing she had my full attention on Thursday at noon. And I tell her, if something comes up before then, you can call me. If not, I'll see you Thursday at noon or whatever. And it gave me a little bit of room and space to have other clients and to do some things in between. And it also gave Lori that feeling where she wasn't constantly having to chase me down for an appointment. So that was huge for me because in the heyday, I was heavy buyers, and that's probably the hardest part of the business is when you're heavy buyers, because like Lori said earlier, they are the ones that take your time, and you can't go on vacation while you have a buyer that has to be in a house. So you have to be very methodical with your time. And I reference spinning plates all the time. You've got to keep them happy. And we talked in the session earlier this week about waiting tables. You've got to keep them, appetizer, salad, drinks filled, and you've got to be able to wait on them and take new clients in. So you've got to find some leverage there the best that you can.
And I love that analogy that you used during your presentation, Sarah, of being a server, and it immediately made me think about every time I'm at a restaurant how I am the only priority to me and my table. I could, and it's not. I mean, I hate to say this, but I could care less about the other tables. My drink needs to be filled, and I never thought about that server. And our clients never think about us, that we are spinning those plates constantly, but it's not their job to.
Right. And I think the biggest mistake that new agents make, and I've done that myself, is you set that one table and you see them from their order through the check, and then you never let anybody else, you never get anyone else started on the process. So then you're starting over every time. So you've got to be able to work several at a time, or you're going to be starting over all the time.
Yeah, good. Lori, do you have anything to add to that? What was your first system you put into place?
With our board, they give us DocBox. So I scan everything from all of my files in my DocBox. So I can access it from any computer, any hotel computer, my cell phone, whatever I need to do. When an attorney calls and asks for something, I have it all there. So it's a little more work to set up in the beginning, but I have that. And then my personal files, I put in Dropbox, which is the same thing. If there's something that I need for a client, it is always accessible no matter what I have. And then I'm not chained to an office or carrying a briefcase around or, dragging everything with me that I need.
Excellent. I love that. Yeah, and I think when I was an agent years ago, guys, this was years ago. I mean, there were dinosaurs walking the earth. But when I was an agent, very similar. I always looked for that push button. How can I go to a Phillies game and still take care of a client? How can I sit on the beach and still take care of a client? I love that, using the cloud. So there are some questions that are coming up and they're rolling in. The number one question that has moved to the top now, and remember everyone, as our attendees, you can thumb up a question and it will move to the top of our list. Is there a particular Century 21 tool that any of you can't live without? I kind of like that question.
I like the Preferred Client Club. I think it's inexpensive. It's a great way. It's a high quality product to keep track of your clients for 5 years.
Mine would be Golden Ruler. So I use that with my sellers religiously. And if you're not familiar with what that is, when you get a listing put in, you put their email in there and then they get a report. You can kind of manipulate what you want that report to look like. But they get that report whether you're working or not. So anything you can do automated that doesn't look automated saves you some time. So Golden Ruler for sure is my top Century 21 tool.
Awesome. And when we talk about tools, as you guys just talked about, 2 Century 21 tools that are there for you, there's a couple of ways that we can find our tools, right? We can go out into the marketplace and locate a tool or system that might work really good for us. We could use our brand or our company tools and systems, or we can develop our own. And some of you, the two of you, and I'm sure Matt has as well, developed your own. Let me ask you about that. When you're developing your own system or tool, how do you go about the thought process? How do you refine it? How do you build it? What's the trial and error process as you go through?
For me, it was, again, everything I've learned, I feel like it's been by fire. So I usually wait too late. And that's what I mean by that. I usually wait too late to have that system in place that I'm so busy I can't make a system. And so that's where it really starts to break down. We talked a lot about road construction when we talked about systems where, a lot of road construction in our area, by the time they get around to finishing it, it's time to start again because now they need bigger. So you've got to keep that bigger goal in mind. And when you build a system, don't build it for one client. That doesn't make sense. You don't need a system for one client. You need a system that's going to hold several. And we all want as many clients as we can take. So, think a little bigger, think something that's going to save you time, that's going to save you breath, that's going to save you a phone call. And we talked about this again earlier this week. Look for your biggest pain point today. So if you're heavy listing, don't take something, the system on a buying end, that's not going to save you more time today. Find something that's going to save you time, energy, money, effort, whatever it is, and your biggest pain point today.
The one thing that I do is I have a process that I do things the same way every time, because I do get interrupted 10 times when I'm doing something. And I know if I, stop at a certain point, I know where I'm going to pick up, because that's just the same place that I needed to be at before. And that way I know by handling volume that what step of the process that I'm in, that I don't forget something, because that's always seems to be my biggest fear, that keeps you up at night, where you're, oh, I forgot to send that PNR, I forgot to do something. And if you keep the same processes, but it is ever evolving. As the industry changes and the technology changes, you can't just do it the way you always did it. You just have to work with the new technologies.
Good point, Lori. Good point. And also, again, that analogy of construction. It's great because both situations that you guys spoke about are relatable, right? Doing something over and over and over again, create a system for it. And then the traffic, just thinking about construction. I know there are tons of road things that you have to think down the line. I love that. Thank you, ladies. Look, questions are rolling to the top, and there's a bit of a backlog. So let me go over to our Q&A. We have a question here. How many let's try that again. How many transactions do you feel you could handle in 1 year by yourself?
That's an easy one for me to answer. I normally, for the last probably 5 years, I sell between 40 and 60 houses a year.
That's a lot by yourself.
That's a whole lot. Yeah. For me, when I told you about throwing my cell phone, I'm glad they've made them more expensive, because I don't throw them anymore. I threw my BlackBerry and a flip phone, I think, but my pager. Yeah, I think for me, I had an assistant and I did 90 maybe, and I thought I was going to die. I really thought I was going to die. She was licensed, so she was able to do a lot. So that was kind of two. Before that, yeah, maybe like Lori said, 40 or 50, but it really depends on your load. If those are all sellers, you could do a ton more. If you're heavy buying, which a lot of people are starting out, or early on I was, that looks completely different. And then it depends on your systems. You're only as good as your systems are. So if you have 0 systems, that looks totally different for everybody, as far as the load that you can have coming in.
Awesome. Good. So I've got another question here about systems that's gone to the top. I'm going to alter it just a little bit, because we spoke a little bit about this, but the question is, what systems both inside or outside of Century 21 do you use? So maybe it's what's your favorite system? Either we've already talked about your inside Century 21, but maybe outside, and it could be something that you've developed yourself.
I use an Excel spreadsheet to keep track of all my sales, and I have it for probably the last 7 or 8 years, where I put every piece of information, and that's something that I've refined over time. When the commitments due, the mortgage date, the client's name, the client's email address, was a buyer or seller, what attorney did we use, what mortgage company did we use, so I can reference it quickly, and I keep that stored in my Dropbox.
I'm taking notes on you, Lori. Thank you. I'm not here. I'm here to learn from you. Okay. Yeah, I think this is hard. I think the one that has been most profitable for me, and I know that was a question that Brian kind of had for us too, adopting the buyer and after a sale. So developing an action plan of some kind, and your system for that can look like anything. It could be a Gmail, it could be in your calendar, it could be on a piece of paper, however you want to start, but having some type of plan of, what am I going to do after I go to the closing table? What am I going to do with my client? What am I going to do to adopt the buyer? And now, because every transaction, you should have 2 clients. You should have yours, and then you should adopt the buyer on the other end, because you have to know the other agent is not, you have to assume the other agent's not going to follow up. So we have actually done really well adopting the buyer, just checking in. Do you have any questions? Did you get any Amazon packages in the last week? Just reaching out an olive branch and but having a plan in place, so you're not just, you're not just throwing spaghetti and seeing what sticks. Like, you really need to know, this is what I do every time something closes. And like Lori says, if you do it every time, it's almost robotic, and it's so much harder to forget what you're supposed to do if it's something you do all the time.
Awesome. Sarah, I have a question for you because Lori, you're as you mentioned, you're a sole agent. And when we mean sole agent, that means just one, not like she's like a jazz artist or something, right? There you go, Sarah. But Sarah, here's a question for you. With your systems, because you have a team in place, how do you establish who handles what? And then once you've established that, how do you hold them accountable?
So managing people is the hardest thing I've ever had to do in my entire life. I do not recommend it. But you have to at some point delegate. You just have to. And it's probably the hardest thing I've ever had to do, is give something up and then hope that they do it well. But I would say, knock on wood, for the most part, they do it better than I can, because they have more time and more patience, and they can focus, and they're not a one-man band trying to answer the phone and the door and, whatever. So they can kind of focus on that task. Now, we assign things on action plans so that they are doing kind of the same thing over and over when a listing comes in or when a buyer comes in, so they can kind of hone in on those skills. As far as knowing that it's done, in anything, whether you're a sole agent or on a team, in real estate, it's always your job. If you ever say that's not my job, you've missed the point. It's always your job. So it's your job to check for things on the contract. It's your job to follow up with things. It's your job. So in that mindset, I've kept that as a team too, that I have to inspect what I expect from them. So I can't just say, hey, go do it. I trust that they're going to do it, but I do have to go back and check sometimes. And we have to have these come to Jesus meetings every now and then, but we try to, we have a meeting once a week, what we call level 10. And we sit down with admin and we talk through problems and questions and what are we seeing that maybe isn't happening. So instead of just waiting till the end of the year until somebody gets mad at us, we try to address things as they go. And that's been super helpful.
Good job. I love that. And I'm going to remind everyone on the Q&A, if you go into the Q&A and if you have a question, take a look at the questions that are already there. And if there's a question that you like, that you want to push to the top, just thumb up. Going back to that, Sarah, I want to ask you a question, because you mentioned at the beginning that managing people is the hardest thing ever, right? Do you have a team manager other than yourself?
I mean, Allie is my right-hand man. She's me, basically. So she's kind of the muscle. So where there's days that I don't say what I might need to say to the team, she stands up and does that for me. So again, at the end of the day, it's something that I am responsible for, but her strengths overcome my weaknesses sometimes, and vice versa. So we can play bad cop, good cop with each other a lot too. And so finding the right people for the right seat is huge. And so she's been kind of that. That's not her official term, but I would say she would claim that role. She's been called way worse than manager. So.
No, I thought I was unmuting myself and I muted myself. So Lori, I'm going to ask you similar questions, because as a solo agent, you are going to have a team of support behind you, right? Your office pretty much becomes your team. So within the systems that you've developed, have you delegated anything over to your office manager or your broker, who I see is your favorite, and or maybe an admin that helps you out?
Oh, we have an office manager. So I turn all my deals into her, and she, checks everything. I have someone that will show houses for me. He also does my photographs. So he goes out, and I don't do anything with photographs anymore. He takes all the pictures, and we kind of we've been working together for about 6 years. So we have a system in place. He generally has the lock boxes. He measures the rooms, and we don't have to talk to each other. I just say, here's the address. And he's like, what day and time? And we go on from there. I usually do a group text with the client. Like I said, and those are things you refine over the years. You know, it was a lot harder in the beginning, but now it makes sense for us to work together. And then I'm very fortunate that our office is family owned and everybody is heavily involved. So if for some reason I can't show a house, I probably have a dozen people that'll show a house for me. It's wonderful to work with a company like that.
That's awesome to know. And I know you both are affiliated with, actually, when Matt comes back too, all three of you are affiliated with amazing brokerages. But I want people to think about that, you know, having a team is fantastic, but we also, as a solo agent, we also have a team behind us as well who can help us out. Go ahead, Sarah. Yep.
I was just going to say it was really overwhelming for me at first to think about hiring an assistant. So think about ways to leverage your time, maybe if you're not there yet. Do you have somebody mowing your yard? Do you have somebody cleaning your house? Where can you save some time that might be an $8-10 hour a job, where you could save some time and you're not necessarily hiring an assistant or making this big commitment yet, but you're giving yourself some time. So think through that first. If you haven't done those, do that, start there.
Great point. Go ahead, Lori.
We actually talked about that in the class that I had. Is I started using Instacart, which I had never done before the pandemic. And it was always something. It's 10 o'clock at night, you're at the office and you remember there's no bread for lunch in the morning and you don't want to stop and all those other things. And when I found out that it cost me about $10 and I can have groceries delivered to my door, there's no looking back now.
That's me at Amazon. That's right. It comes right to my door the next day. Oh yeah, I'm there. Absolutely. Good points, both. Thank you so much. Our next popular question has come in from Austin. And it is, what is your favorite information source to pass along to your clients? Podcast, magazines, newsletters, Bigger Pockets. I don't know what Bigger Pockets is. I hope someone will tell me. What do you got for us, ladies?
I do a lot with my Facebook account and social media, but I never put it all as real estate. So I share a lot of things from like the local newspaper or trade magazines or things, but along with all the other stuff that I do, but I try to do it from reputable sources and stuff that I think is valid rather than just loading people up with garbage information.
I would say the only thing I really pass along to them is maybe tips from like the loan officer. So like our loan officer, Michelle, she is very good about, here's some things like don't buy anything major, don't take out new. I try to give them information like that, but for the most part, I try to keep them away from everything else. I want to be their eyes and ears in this process. And there's so much online that they can get overwhelmed and start having too much information. It's like picking from a big menu when you have too many choices. But I think too, there's so much misinformation online and they start talking to mom and dad and uncle and all of a sudden they're real estate experts. And then I'm having to undo some things. So I think you have to be careful where they go and you have to kind of set them up for what's out there and how confusing it can be if you're going to too many sources.
I like that. And we also have our, don't forget those, the HGTV experts. Yes. Austin. What was that, Sarah?
I hate that show because of that. There was a time, I was probably in the business maybe 10 years or so, and stenciling became this thing. And people would go to Michael's or Hobby Lobby or whatever and buy the plastic stencils and like stamp the wall and like make grapevines or something weird. And it was like they saw some HGTV, something came out and it was terrible. I'm like, don't do that ever again.
At first I'm like, stenciling, what are you talking about? But you're right, I have seen that and it's...
And these are not stencils.
Yeah.
They're stickers and I can pull them off. I promise. I did not see
That's great. That's great. Hey, Austin, I see you're here and I'm dying to know what Bigger Pockets is. So if you could throw that into the chat. Oh, here we go. I'm assuming they're referring to biggerpocket.com. It's a social media group. Oh, okay. Thank you. Didn't know about that. Did anyone know about that? Nope. No. Okay. For investors, there we go. Interesting. Let's see that. You learn something every day. I love it. Great. And it looks like we have Matt back. Matt, you're back here with us. So we're going to include you in our conversation. As a matter of fact, I saw a question for Matt earlier down the road. Yep, I do see it. Matt, yep, there. Okay, so our next question here. Oh, wow. They switched really quick. Did you all have a mentor when you started in real estate?
I didn't know I did, but my manager, my office manager, Bill Stedham, I just kind of emulated what he did, and it came in handy as I started a team because I'm basically running a mini brokerage. And so the years that I watched him and his office meetings and things like that, I was learning things that I didn't know I was going to need. So I would suggest finding somebody maybe real estate related, maybe finance related, health related. Find somebody that's an expert. Don't expect all things from one person, but really find what you need, or maybe pick one area of your life that you really want to excel. And if that's real estate, find somebody that's doing a little more than what you're doing, and start there.
Awesome and great. And Matt looks like he's driving. Matt, don't turn your camera on while you're driving. You're good. Yeah, thank you. We're good.
Sorry about that.
That's all right. We got you. We want you to be safe, but I know you can hear us. I love that you said that you didn't know that you did, but you actually did. And I know Bill is here somewhere in our crowd today. So congratulations, Bill. Lori, how about you? Did you have a mentor?
For me, it's the original owner of our firm. He's been in the real estate business since the 1960s, and he's seen it, done it, chaired a committee for it. He's done absolutely everything, and he does it honestly and ethically. So I try to emulate myself after him. He's not afraid to do any task. He's still, he's in his 80s and he's still going strong, and he's got the respect of everybody in the industry around us.
Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. And now, Matt, how about you? When you got in real estate 4 years ago, did you have a mentor?
Mine was also my broker. So Adam Stein, he had been in the business obviously for a while as well, and he coached me up on everything from soup to nuts.
So there's obviously a recurring theme here. Yeah, rely on your brokers. They know a lot, and they're not going to steer you wrong, because your success is their success. So good job. Thank you, everyone. I almost said thank you, ladies, forgetting that Matt is back, but Matt is back. All right, our next question that we have here. Starting out as a new agent, how long did it take you to get your first lead?
Do you want to go, Lori?
Sure.
Oh, Brian or Matt? I mean, I heard Matt too. Sorry.
Yeah, I'll take it. So I got, actually, again, this was the training from my broker. When we were in our first week or so of training, one of the things that he was coaching us on was calling our network to let them know that we're in the business. So I did that on day one, and I happened to connect with somebody that lived in Virginia and was planning to move down to South Florida, to move to Florida. And that ended up being my first lead. So the first week I got my first lead, and I was still in training when I closed that deal.
So what was interesting for me is I never really knew what other people did in real estate. I just did what I was supposed to do. Like, I took my classes and did all those things. So it's probably in the business for 5 years, and we got a new office manager. And she came up to me and she said, "You sold 20 houses your first year?" I go, "I don't know." She's like, "Really?" She goes, "That's exceptional." I go, "It is?" I had no idea. I did not know that, the average agent sells 8 houses. I didn't know what I was doing was any different than what anybody else was doing. And I think that's when I realized that maybe this is my career. This is where I'm headed.
I would say that's kind of a loaded question because it kind of depends on your sphere. Like, I live where I barely graduated high school. And so I know a lot of people here. So it was more or less just letting them know what I was doing, what I was up to. And luckily I was a nice person in high school, so people liked me enough to call me. But I would say starting out, something our broker has us do, and I believe we got it from Buffini, is make a list of 100 people that you know. Could be hairdresser, mechanic, mom, dad, aunt, it doesn't matter, 100 people, and start there. Start learning birthdays and addresses and phone numbers, and just start talking to them, start having conversations. It doesn't have to be weird or salesy, just let them know that you're licensed, and if they come across anything that you could do to help, just let you know, and that's a pretty easy conversation to have.
Yeah, Lori, go ahead. I had another question for that.
I was just going to say, I got my license in January and I hadn't sent out Christmas cards that year because I was going through a career change, obviously. And so I sent out Valentine's cards to my Christmas card list. And that's where it started for me, because I did end up with some leads from that, but it's the same thing. I just said, I got to start somewhere. So I'll start with the people I know.
So just like the mentor question, I hear a recurring theme. And part of that recurring theme is your sphere. So let me ask you guys, because I know all three of you really heavily rely on your sphere for business. Is there a system that you've put in place to manage your sphere? One, that's the first question. The second question is, I'll just leave it there. Is there a system that you put in place to manage your sphere?
So I use Referral Maker, which is a Buffini product, Brian Buffini, and it's just a CRM. But what it does is it allows you to categorize your people. So I don't put internet leads in there. I don't put people I don't know. It's basically, like Lori said, your Christmas list, people that you know. And I track who gives me referrals, and I categorize these folks. A+ is people that give me referrals. A, they've given me one in the past. B, they would if they knew how. And C, I just don't know yet if I'm their agent or not. And that gives me the ability to know where to spend my time and what's most profitable. So I don't send a lot of stuff to the B's and C's. I love on the people that have given me referrals. I send them brownies and thank yous and things like that. I do extra for them, and that's an easy way to turn that one person into a lifetime of leads, and it's free.
Love that. Lori or Matt, do you have anything to add to that question?
I don't have a really good system for keeping up with my people. I try to interact and, thank the people obviously who send me referrals, but that's probably a good 80 to 90% of my business is all referral.
Awesome.
So I do a lot of, pre-COVID appreciation parties. And so that's where all of my network is able to come together and celebrate. And, I'll be hosting it. So we'll do it at a local restaurant or something along those lines where everybody can just get out and enjoy themselves. Also celebrating with like giving out gifts to a lot of my network and my past clients as well. Always key. And other than that, just trying to stay in touch with them and utilizing social media as much as I possibly can. So it's another great way for me to connect with my network, or even for them to just kind of see what's going on and stay in front of them as well. And so social media has always been a major point for me.
I love it. Matt, since we have you on the line, you have, from what I understand, another system that you use that involves bourbon and videos. Could you talk to us about that a little bit?
Yeah, we had to hide that for yesterday's session. But I do a live series on Wednesdays that's called Boca Bourbon and Real Estate. So mostly every Wednesday night right now, we're going through renovations at our house. So everything's kind of a little bit more hectic, but usually every Wednesday we'll have Boca Bourbon and Real Estate. So it's usually myself and my wife on, unless I have a guest host. And so it's me and some other person. We always have a glass of bourbon with us, and we try to promote like the bottle that we're drinking that night. And then we'll get into some topics about what's going on in our area. And then from there, we'll obviously give them just a little bit of details about what's going on in the real estate market as well. But you guys can definitely check us out, Boca Bourbon and Real Estate, Wednesday nights. Usually starts around 6:30.
I love that idea. idea. And I love bourbon. Matt, did you mention that your wife is there with you?
Yeah, so she's my co-host for Boca Bourbon Real Estate.
Interesting. Is she
We
licensed?
got is she no. So I tried. She won't do it. But she is. We actually are going to introduce a new segment that's going to be more focused on in our show as well. But it's taken a little bit of convincing for her to commit to it. But she loves doing the show. But now we're going to make her even more involved with it. So it'll be good.
Awesome. We missed a little bit about that, but I think we got the gist of it. The show is called Boca Bourbon and Real Estate. Is that what it's called?
Yep, that's it. BBRE for short.
Okay, someone was asking in the chat there. Great. Sarah or Lori, are you guys doing anything like that? Maybe something fun and out of the box that involves video and your network?
I do not.
I am working on a podcast. I don't know what that's going to look like yet, but we're just going to do it. So we decided, Bill and myself and another agent in our office, just figured it was time we added something else under our belt. So we're going to work on that and see how that goes. But for the most part, just connecting with people on Facebook and Instagram and things like that, just letting them see that I'm a real person. But I probably could learn some things from Matt. Probably need to do that. And it's a video, something that I don't really like to do that often. So probably something I need to do.
Awesome. I was writing in the chat.
It's a game
Kelly,
changer, Sarah.
there we go. It's a game changer. Awesome. Kelly, if you could do me a favor and write in the chat the name of Matt's show, because people are asking, it's Boca Bourbon and Real Estate. And Matt, how do they access that?
If you guys follow me on Instagram, I always post the day and the time that we're gonna go live, and then you can actually check out our IGTV series as well, because almost every episode that we have is also on our IGTV.
Interesting. I'd love to hear more about that, because that's like Sarah said, that's something that we're all interested in, and it's something that can definitely move forward with. Matt, there is a question specifically for you that has moved up to the top of our question and answer board here. The question is, did you start as a full-time agent when you started, and what is your pre-agent background?
So I did start as a full-time agent. To give you guys a little details behind myself with that, I spent 10 years in corporate America. And so I worked for Best Buy back in Minneapolis, and then I got recruited to work for Office Depot at their headquarters as well down here in Florida. And I was running a team of inventory planners there. So we did like logistics. And so I spent 10 years doing that. The last like 2 to 3 years, I realized that I wasn't feeling fulfilled, and I was missing my true passion, which was running my own business. And my daughter was born the month before I decided to just completely quit my job and go full time into real estate. So I met my broker, I think a week before my daughter was born, and then after I met him, I was like, that's it, I'm gonna just do it. And I decided to just quit I called my boss, told her that I was going to be leaving, and I jumped right into real estate.
Awesome. And the question, I'm going to extend that question out to Lori and Sarah about how you got started. I think, Lori, you spoke about it a bit, but fill us in on how you got started. Did you just dive in, or did you do it slowly?
So I had a real full-time job and career, and then I became a stay-at-home mom when my kids were little. And then when my youngest went off to kindergarten, a friend had asked me, he was a home builder, if I would come work for him a couple hours a week. I'm like, you know what, I'm not good at the stay-at-home thing anyway, so I might as well. And I ended up working for him for 6 years. And I basically ran the company. It's like I knew I was destined for more. So he actually paid for me to get my real estate license for some developing he was going to do. And then we kind of had a falling out. And I'm like, well, I got this piece of paper. I guess I could sell houses. And really never looked for a career, never intended, never really knew this is what I wanted to do. Now I wish I would have found it in my 20s instead of my 40s.
For me, I started as a waitress and decided I was an assistant as well, or a receptionist at a Remax in town. And I just worked on the weekends, but it wasn't enough. I wanted more money. So it wasn't enough. I wanted my own things. I had to drive a minivan until I could afford my own car. So it was very motivating for me. So I had to share a minivan with my mom. So I was doing that and waiting tables, and then decided to get my license because the agents were coming to me asking me questions. And I was 18 or 19. They were asking me like they were paying me to input their listing because they didn't know how to, or they were asking me to do flyers for them. And I'm like, hey, I'm doing everything. And I could see their commission check. I'm like, wait, I'm getting how much an hour? So I went and got my license. But I probably worked, I delivered pizzas and waited tables probably a couple years with my license. And it was very challenging, especially being a waitress. I worked on the weekends, and that's when good money was to be had. So that's also when people wanted to see houses. So I don't remember who gave me the final push, but they were like, listen, if you spent the time that you're spending waiting tables on clients, you could make, 10 times the amount you're making or whatever it was, and I was like, okay. So it was very much a leap. So I commend Matt and Lori both for jumping in, because it's scary to go from something solid and steady to something that's, you wake up every day completely unemployed and no idea how you're going to eat. And it's exciting and scary.
It is. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Hey, Lori, are you with us there? Yeah, okay, there's a question for you. Oh, where'd it go? Can Lori share the Excel template that she uses? It's a question that's moved up to the top. And if you're willing to share it, Lori, you can download it in the chat, of course, without all of your information. That way people can see it there.
So I have it in my Dropbox right here, but it has all my information on it. So I don't know. I'll think of a way.
Okay, great. As we go through. Here's another question that's moved to the top. At what point do you suggest, and this is probably for, and Matt, we were talking about this before you came back, but we're talking about expanding the team and what type of support you have through the office or through your team. But this question is, at what point do you suggest we hire a showing agent?
That one for me?
It's for anyone, probably more for Sarah that she has a team, but it also could be an opinion question as well.
I actually do not have a showing agent, so I am all ears for Lori or Matt.
So I'll jump in on that one. I'd say the first time around when I started building a team, I did it too early. And I did it in probably I was at the 1.5 year mark, and I didn't have my structure in place. And so that one completely, I disbanded that team, figured out that wasn't the right time to do it for myself. And then I would say as I got into closer to year 3, that's when I started. The first thing I brought in was an assistant, more than a showing specialist. And the reason why I brought in the assistant was to do the back end work, right? So that I could be out in the field doing more work out that way. Then after I got to a point where I couldn't really do more field work, so I was bringing in too many listings or more listings that I could manage, and even having more buyers that I could manage. That's when I started initiating some support on the showing side. And one thing that you guys can think about is you can even look to a junior agent in your office and see if they would be open to showing properties that you compensate them in whatever way you negotiate with them, right? That's a way to kind of get your feet wet with it, make sure that person will actually mesh with you, and then you start talking about bringing them on as a team member. But I would say that definitely is a better way to go than just jumping straight into it. Unless, of course, you already know that person and you thoroughly analyze, you know that they're going to fit your culture. That way, you can at least get your feet wet with it.
Good points. Thank you so much. And also, I'm going to add to that to always, lean on your broker as well. Especially, they may have some suggestions for you and ways to approach some of the agents in the office. We've got a lot of movement on our questions. As a reminder, as we get ready to wrap this up, we are now at the top of the hour, and we have just a few more minutes with our panelists because they're busy. We got to get them back to their business. But as a reminder, if you go into the Q&A feature down at the bottom of your screen, you can vote up a question. So we've been averaging about 1 or 2 votes right now. Before we were averaging a few more. If you see a question that you really like, that you agree with, use the thumbs up, and that will move the question to the top. The more thumbs up that we get, it'll move the question to the top. I have a question for you guys. A couple of questions. First of all, my first question is, of the systems that you have, that you use, whether they're listing systems, buyer systems, prospecting systems, whatever, of those systems that you have, which, if you had to get rid of everything and only keep one, what would you keep and why?
For me, it would be the after sale plan. I think that's where most agents fail, is they go to the closing table and then they never reach out to that client again. The client doesn't even remember their name at some point. It's been so long. So I think for me, that's what's kept me in front of my clients. And then, along with that, like we talked about earlier, I adopt the other side too. So just keeping that relationship going, even when there's not a sale to be had. And then they realize, oh, she wasn't just here to sell me a house. She really does care about me and my family and the future and how we're doing. So I try to not just take my check and run. I really try to stay with them throughout the process and after.
I love that, Sarah. Lori, I saw your mic off as well.
I like my electronically stored files. I think that is just such a big part of my business. Instead of having to run to the office to grab something, that it's always available to me no matter where I am, 24 hours a day.
Yeah, that push button ease is great. And Matt, I'm going to ask you, if you did a lot, you talked to us about your listing business. Is there a system that you would keep?
So are we saying like system, or can technology be included in there as well?
Oh, sure.
So if it's tech-based, then it would be my social media account. If I had nothing else, I could at least still utilize my social media account to drive my business.
I like that. Yeah. Good points on all 3 around. And as we go through talking about social media, there's a question here about social media that has come to the top. For your Facebook and social media accounts, are you identified and listed as yourself, or do you list C21 as the primary source? Basically, do you have 2 Facebook accounts or just 1?
So I can speak to that one. When I started, and I think most people probably should start out on a personal Facebook, because that's how people know you. You want them to see you as human and relate to you. But that being said, you have to be super careful what you post, when you post. You don't want to post that you're getting your nails done at noon if you haven't called someone back all day. So you have to be very careful on what you do. The only reason I have 2 now is I maxed out on friends on Facebook as an individual. So now we have a business page just to make sure we get overflow and stuff in there too. But I would say run it as long as you can, unless you're private. If you want to be private and you don't want people seeing your kids or what you're doing, do a business page. But you just don't want to spread yourself too thin. And focusing on 1 is way easier than focusing on 2 or 3 accounts. So I suggest starting with 1 until you get it built enough to kind of stand on its own.
I have one personal account that I run almost everything through, but we have an automated system where all my new listings and blog posts will come out, and it will not post to a personal Facebook. So I have a real estate instructor page. So it shifts to there because it's a business page. And then from there, I share it to my personal account if it's something I want to share.
Nice.
So I do have a business account on Facebook just for generating ads for direct targeting. And other than that, like the same stuff that's on my business page gets shared over to my personal page for Facebook, and then Instagram, everything that goes on the Instagram automatically feeds over to my business page for Facebook as well.
Well, and something I saw that I thought was genius, some girls that used to be in our office, they had a personal and a business page, but what they would do, the same closing, their personal page, they would have the people standing in front of the house. Their business page would be a picture of the house. So the posts weren't the same. It was the same business, but it looked like they were doing double the work. But it also kept it from being the same post on, but if they, if their clients followed both, they're not just seeing a duplicate. So I thought that was pretty smart, and it gave them two different looking posts.
I love that. And that makes me think of another question for all of y'all. As far as systems, do you have systems in place for your social media? I know that there are vendors out there like a Hootsuite who will put in a system for you, or you can utilize an automation of sorts. Do you use that, or do you manage your social media yourself?
For me, I actually have both. I manage all my social media myself, but my broker provides us with the targeted advertising, I should say, the listings, the blog posts and things that automatically go out to Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and those things. But it's a combination of both. I don't think you can rely on one or the other.
Great. Sarah?
You have to be super careful with the automated stuff just because of where the algorithms hit. So a lot of that stuff used to still pop up normally. Now, sometimes it's not as prevalent as something you've done organically. So I don't really have a super rigid outline of what I do on social. Now, my personal page, I do not put a lot of real estate stuff. I don't post listings. I don't, I just want them to know what I do, but I don't want to shove it down their throat. So I might take a funny picture of something I saw in a house or something that happened to me out while I was showing, where I'm kind of plugging it, but not really like saying, hey, I want your business. I need leads. I need your listing. But just keeping myself out there. And they know what I do at this point. So it's just keeping that conversation going.
Awesome. Great. There were a couple of questions that moved over to the chat that I would like to direct everyone's attention to, not our panelists, but some questions that, the strength of our network is our network. And it's important that we rely on each other to, answer questions and help us along. And that has happened in the chat. So if you go to the chat, you're going to see a conversation about advertising on your Facebook and things like that. And a great answer for that, and some conversation over there about that as well. So with that, I have a couple more questions for you guys, but I want to remind everyone as we get ready to wrap up, please, I've got, 20 questions left in our Q&A. And some are repeat questions, some are new questions, but if you, as we're going to wrap up with maybe, guys, 2 more questions. Is that good for you guys? 2 more questions. Do me a favor, because one of those, we're actually going to do 3 questions. I'm going to have 1 question, then we're going to have 2 questions from the crowd, if that's okay. Do me a favor, when I ask my question, you guys go into the Q&A and start thumbing up, vote up the questions that you want me to ask, the last 2 questions of the day here. And for our panelists, again, I want to thank you for your time, but if you can, go through the questions, and you can also type in an answer in the Q&A. Now, Matt can't because he's driving, but for Sarah or Lori, go through and answer some of the questions that are in the Q&A as well. My last question for you guys would be, it's real simple. what advice would you have for an agent who wants to improve their business?
Use video.
I love that. Use video. Okay. What else, Lori?
I shared this with you yesterday, but I taught the class on business planning. And one of the topics was, what do you do? Like right now, we have extremely low inventory and a definite seller's market, and things are slow right now. If you have a buyer, it's just for frustration. So I thought, here I am telling people what they should do. It's like, what can I do about this market? So I looked back and I found 35 leads that previously they had expressed interest in selling a house, but they hadn't, for whatever reason, hadn't come to anything and hadn't spoken to them in a while. So I contacted 35 people the other day and I ended up with 3 appointments. And I just kind of laughed at myself because I only did it because I kind of felt guilty that here I'm telling other people to do these things and I'm not doing them myself. And it turned out that now it's going to be something I'm going to do a little more often.
I love that, Lori. And when we talked earlier about that, I commended you on just that you're honest. Hey, if I'm going to tell other people to do this, I need to do it myself, and look at the results from just doing that. That's great. Sarah, I see you off mute.
Sorry. So you had said ways to expand or grow your business, and there was a question in the chat too that was asking kind of that question, but how do you grow personally and how does that intertwine? And so I would say that all of our lives are intertwined that way. So it's really hard to be the top of your game here and bottom of your game in this part or aspect of your life. So I think if you're always willing to learn and grow, read, listen to things, podcasts and books and mentors and things like that, that is the biggest, the best, the fastest way that you can grow as a person and can grow in your business. Because what that does is it creates a better version of you. And that's what your clients want. We all want to work with good people. So you've got to be a good person. And I don't mean that as like, be a good person. You just need to be somebody that they like, know, and trust. And you need to be happy with yourself and well-balanced and well-rounded. So I think that's been huge for me, is just some personal development in there too, where you're not throwing your phone across the room.
I love that. I'm going to have that visual from here out, a phone flying across the room. So we have our number 1 question. So again, we're going to have time for 2 questions. I'm going to open this up to all of our panelists. And I was reading through it. I love this question. I love it. The question is, please talk about how growing your business is directly related to growing yourself personally and what you do to grow yourself as a person.
I believe in education. I forever take a lot of classes. I take beginner classes, I take advanced classes. They don't have to just be real estate classes, whatever I can take. And that's also why I started teaching, is because I learn more from the class than I do when I set out to teach. I always come out with an idea that I hadn't thought about, or it gives you a fresh perspective on what you're doing.
And I personally love that. Thank you. As a matter of fact, Albert Einstein says instructional development should start at birth and cease at death. So there was another question in here about education, Lori, and how long the training time is. And I have to say, it's your entire career. It's constant. You're constantly growing. You're constantly learning. So, Lori, I love that. Anyone else want to add to that, Sarah or Matt?
I would say for me, just kind of like what we were talking about earlier, is just being super aware of where you're at in your life and what needs the most work. And we talk a lot about 5 different pillars, financial, physical, things like that, where we get so wrapped up in real estate, everything else goes to the wayside. And at some point that hurts, so, and I always say that if you're not paying attention and doing what you need to do, God's going to thump you on the forehead, and it's not you don't want him to get your attention. Okay. So just let me warn you there. But yeah, so I think just focusing on those, and we set 15-day goals. So twice a month, we set goals in each one of those categories, and just little bitty small things. They don't have to be major, but one little thing that you can do to tweak that area of your life where your wheel is a little more round and not, all real estate, because real estate will take over any space that you give it.
Very nice. I love that. How to balance out that wheel. Before we come off of that, Matt, are you able to add anything?
Yeah. So pretty much very similar to what Sarah was saying. So the way that I kind of structure myself is I'm a father, I'm a husband, and then I'm a businessman, right? So everything that I do has to tie around those three things. And obviously I try to do my best to keep them all balanced or keep them in their segments. And so as long as I'm able to grow as a father, grow as a husband, and grow as a businessman, everything is flourishing together. If I see that one side teeters, my wife is a phenomenal accountability partner, and she will let me know, and we'll get right back on track. And so it's focusing on those three elements, and also having the right people to hold you accountable and sharing your goals, right? Like my wife knows all of my goals, my broker knows all of my goals. So as long as we're staying in line with what we're supposed to be tracking towards all of that stuff, then everything's going well.
Awesome. There was a question that I had chosen for our last question that Sarah's now answering online. No, that's all right, Sarah. That's great. It's great. It was a question for you anyway. But it's something that actually I want to ask all of you. It's about that, what we spoke about in almost all of your sessions this week. How you get business from business. How your business multiplies. So our final question is going to be something along that line of how do you grow business from the business that you're getting in? For example, if you get a listing, Matt talked about it yesterday, how you increase that and how you get more business from it. For Sarah, how you put systems in place that make sure that you're going to get more business from it. And for Lori, your business planning, how do you plan to multiply the business that you're getting so that you're not just saying, hey, I want 10 deals, but those 10 deals turn into 20, 30 deals. What would you say about that?
I would say that you really need to think of why you frequent the businesses that you do. Why do you go back? Because sometimes we go back to places and we don't really pay attention, but we know maybe we like the atmosphere. Maybe the food's not great, but the atmosphere is, and we go back for that. Think through your life and why you revisit things, and you really want to be that for your client. You want that experience to be so good that you're not asking them to come back, they just will. I still ask, by the way, but you know what I mean? You really, that customer service where, because they can get McDonald's just like they can get a steak, but why are they coming to you? Why are they paying more? Why are they passing 3 other real estate offices to get to yours? And that's what you have to repeat so that they have no other choice to come back to you.
Great. Lori, Matt, want to add anything to that?
I try to remember that, we make a good paycheck, when the deal all comes together and you have that, and that people are paying you a lot of money, and that you have to be available to them. That, that fiduciary relationship where their needs become before your own. I think that's important that we remember that, yes, they're people too. This is a transaction, but this is so emotional that we need to be there to support them. And I find that works great for me, because those are the comments that I get on when people return surveys and things, that she was always there. She always had the answer. She didn't know, she got back to us. And that's what people want to feel is valued, I think.
Excellent point. Thank you.
I keep on crushing it with all the responses, and then I just chime in at the end like, yeah, that was great. but no, ladies, you guys are doing an amazing job on that. A couple of things that I guess I could attempt to add in there is obviously staying connected with your past clients, with your network as much as you possibly can, right? We think about how we advertise and market towards people we don't know, but you should have a marketing strategy towards those people that you do know as well. And I think that's a game changer for most agents.
Awesome. Awesome. Hey guys, we are at the end of our time. And you know what? I could talk to you three forever, but you know what? I'm quite sure in your markets, there's some real estate to sell. I want to thank you all for, again, the time you committed to this project and to impacting others. Because it's just so amazing to get your insight as top producers out there who've done it, who started new. It was said to me a couple of years back, I heard it and I loved it. I have never met a top producer who wasn't new at one time. So you all started new. And I want to commend you for what you've done in your business, what you constantly do in your business, and the light that you bring to the Century 21 brand. For those of you who are still on with us today, as we wrap up, keep in mind, again, you can register for your classes for next week. We're going to bring you 5 more days of learning opportunities. So you can go to Celebrate 21 learningsessions.splashthat.com and register for your classes for next week. And we will see you then. Have a great weekend. For Matt, Lori, Sarah, you guys, I just can't.
Thank you,
Before I
Brian.
tear up, because you guys are just amazing.
I have
Thank
a
you.
question for you.
You have a question? Yes.
What is your dog's name in the back? Is that a Jack Russell?
He is. Oh, you see the picture. I thought you saw him running in and out and barking at the UPS man and everything.
No.
Yes, that is Diesel. He is a Jack Russell, and he's actually sleeping here next to me. I'll give you a moment because
Let me see him.
you're looking at me and giving me the. So that is Diesel,
Hi, Diesel.
my buddy.
Sweet babe. How old is he?
He's 11. He's 11. Yeah, he's been around for some time.
Yeah.
But thank you again, all of you. Matt, get home safely and have a fantastic weekend. We'll see everyone next week.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.